You've got the eternal idiotic idea that if anarchy came, it would come from the poor. Why should it? The poor have been rebels, but they have never been anarchists. They have more interest than anyone else in there being some decent government. The poor man really has a stake in the country. The rich man hasn't. He can go away to New Guinea in a yacht. The poor have sometimes objected to being governed badly. The rich have always objected to being governed at all. Aristocrats were always anarchists. G.K. Chesterton's classic, The Man Who Was Thursday, A Nightmare, is a mystery, a political thriller, a fantasy, and a dose of paranoia. It follows the adventures of a man named Gabriel Syme, who was recruited by Scotland Yard to infiltrate an anarchist group. Very quickly, he rises to the ranks of their council of leaders, named after the days of the week. He becomes Thursday, and he attempts to unmask the other days. I can't really go into much greater detail because it would spoil the many, many twists and turns of this plot. Suffice it to say, nothing is what it seems, and everything works on both a symbolic and practical level. It is a mystery which has strong elements of both fantasy and reality, tied together by allegory. By the end, it becomes difficult to distinguish which one is which, both for the reader and for Gabriel. This is as intended, because at the end, it really doesn't matter. The opening quote provides both a clue and a context for The Man Who Was Thursday. Chesterton was writing in a time in which left anarchists had taken upon themselves to attempt to destroy the structures of government throughout the globe, thinking this would bring about a millennial ideal of a world united in peace and harmony. They did this by throwing bombs into crowds and blowing up businesses and government offices. Like the communists who were their fellow travelers and came shortly thereafter, using many of the same tactics, these left anarchists were not so much concerned about the poor as individuals, but the poor as a class, and were more than willing to sacrifice the poor as people in order to uplift everybody. These are religions without theism, and like any religion, they can drive the participants to extreme goals which end up undermining absolutely everything they're working for. The Man Who Was Thursday is not just Chesterton's rebuke to these ideas, but an attempt to replace the ideas with a different sort of millennialism, a different sort of ideology that allows for the uplifting of all. This focus on anarchism may seem silly to modern readers, but this was an important issue at the time. Anarchists had killed the Tsar who had freed the serfs. Anarchists had also, in the guise of the Molly Maguires, attempted to blow up large chunks of the Pennsylvania coal country and were engaged in massive terrorism acts in the United States and Ireland. An anarchist, Gabriel Princip, would later start World War I by assassinating Archduke Franz Ferdinand. This was not trivial, and their fellow travelers, the communists, would eventually succeed in conquering Eastern Europe and large chunks of Asia. The Man Who Was Thursday would have been a classic on its own, with only the mystery and thriller aspects, with the spying and the investigations and the revelations, twist after twist, exciting and many times humorous dialogue, but this additional allegorical layer moves it into a class of its own. It becomes much greater than the sum of its parts, just like, well, I can't tell you, but that would spoil things, now wouldn't it? I'll just say, shall I tell you the secret of the whole world? It is that we have only known the back of the world. We see everything from behind, and it looks brutal. That is not a tree, but the back of a tree. That is not a cloud, but the back of a cloud. Cannot you see that everything is stooping and hiding a face? If we could only get round in front. This has been Joseph Cadotte for Old Sins Reviews.